Welcome back to Tabletop Assault. I'm Ross, and today I'm going to continue my segments on analysing the Adeptus Mechanicus Codex. Today I'm going to be looking at Ironstrider Ballistarii. Now these are pretty good units that obviously work as weapon platforms for your Adeptus Mechanicus and fill in the all-important sort of fast attack role, which is sometimes neglected for them. So what I'm going to do is look at their stats, look at their weapons and special abilities, and speak about a couple of strategies, ways I'd use them, and key Forge World rules for them, as well as stratagems. So let's have a look at them. They do have an impressive movement of 10, which you'd expect from a fast attack unit. Weapon skill and ballistic skill 3, so they hit fairly reliably. Strength 5, okay, if they're in combat I ask you why. Toughness 6, which is good, keeps them in the fight longer. 6 wounds, again not bad. 2 attacks apiece, not going to complain about, again I'm not too worried about their combat capabilities. Leadership 8, now that is important because they're not fearless and you can take them in bigger units, and a 4-up save. Now as I said, you cannot take them up to a maximum unit of 6, which is a bit worrying because if you do end up losing a few you can lose more to morale, which is not ideal. But there is reasons for you might consider taking them in more than 1-2 units, basically to maximise the amount of stratagems you've got, but you do have that option if you decide to do so. The weapons they can use are Twin Cognus Autocannon, which is like an autocannon but it's basically range 48 inches, has heavy 4, strength 7, minus 1 AP with 2 damage. Because it's got Cognus as well, you may fire this weapon even if the firing module advanced, but you must subtract 2 from any hit rolls if they do so. It's usually for a heavy weapon. If you advance you're not going to get to fire, this way you still do, which is kind of nice, and there's good ways to mitigate that as well and keep them firing at nearly full efficiency even if you moved and advanced, but we'll talk about it later. And then we also have Twin Cognus Lascannon, which is again 48 inches, heavy 2, strength 9, minus 3 AP, d6 damage, and you may fire this weapon even if the firing model advanced, but you must subtract 2 from any hit rolls if you do so. So again, like that Cognus one, but Lascannon. So you've more or less got, you've either got twin autocannon or twin Lascannon. We all sort of know how Lascannons and autocannons sort of work and how you should use them. So, which is kind of handy, but they are slightly, better versions because they do have the ability to advance and keep moving and to keep firing, which is great. They do have Canticles of the Messiah, so pretty standard, all units I admit have Canticles, because if you don't, then you can actually lose the Canticles rule between your whole detachment, which would not be ideal, so they've got it. Bionics, all models in this unit have a 6-up invul, very handy to have a 6-up invul. Broad spectrum data tether, which they automatically come with, though you do need to spend the points. Forge World units within 3 inches of any friendly models equipped with a broad spectrum data tether at the start of the morale phase, add 1 to their leadership for a duration of the phase. Fundamentally, I'm assuming this works on the Ballistarii, so that means they're essentially leadership 9. Not bad if you do them in bigger units, helps mitigate any losses or fear bombing if that does happen to you. And then finally, it can explode. If a model with this unit is reduced to 0 wounds, roll a 6 before removing the model from the battlefield. On a 6 it explodes and each unit within 3 inches suffers 1 mortal wound. Now obviously that's not ideal, it's only 1 mortal wound instead of sometimes I think other vehicles get D3 mortal wounds. So only 1's not bad, but not ideal if you're taking them in a unit or you're in your back lines and you cause a fair bit of damage. So with that, let's have a look at sort of some key differences in ways to use Ballistarii. Now, there's mainly 2 different ways you're going to do this. It's really your decision between whether you're going for the Twin Cognus Autocannon or the Twin Cognus Lascannon. There's a moderate price difference between the 2 guns, but however, the important thing to remember is that they both fill 2 different roles essentially. So I'm about to go into descriptions of Lascannons and autocannons. Lascannon, of course, is the anti-heavy sort of vehicle weapon with great strength, great AP, random amount of damage, not reliable but potential for high damage, which is ideal. It may end up with 1 damage, you may end up with 6, so it's not the most reliable, but it can do horrific amounts of damage if need be, and you get 2 shots in this, which is kind of cool. Next up you have the autocannon, which of course is more suited for taking out elite infantry units because it has high strength. It's got not great AP, but it does 2 damage a piece. So you find that they'll probably take out light infantry a wee bit more, along with well, light and elite infantry, along with light vehicles, especially if you're taking on you know, Dark Elder or Elder. You'll find that the autocannon is obviously a better call. One thing I would know, to this end, it's worth saying that Dune Crawlers and Castellan robots probably do these 2 roles of anti-heavy vehicles and anti-troop and light vehicles better than the Ballistarii. Reason being is that Dune Crawler obviously hits very hard. Obviously, it does have a random amount of shots, but it does a minimum of 3 damage each one of those shots, so that's kind of helpful. And then you've also got the robots themselves who can pile out a horrific amount of shots, and they ignore cover as well. So you do sort of wonder, if you've got better units that can do these roles, what's the purpose of Ballistarii? Well, as I mentioned, they sort of do, you know, 2 very important, they do 2 things fairly importantly. The first one, which I mentioned before, is that they fill a fast attack slot. Now the heavy support in AdMech is great. Robots and Dune Crawlers, great units, fantastic, but you can easily fill up on them quite a bit. So having Ironstrider Ballistarii to really push up extra damage and fill the fast attack slot is pretty essential. The other thing as well is that they do have good mobility, and great mobility is still being able to fire. You know, you can essentially cover 10 inches normally, and then possibly even advance, and you can still fire your heavy weapon at -2 to hit, but it does mean that you can cover up to 16 inches of the board, still put out a bit of firepower, but even then you're still covering a huge amount, so you can quickly seal objectives if needed. Very unusual for a weapons platform, if you will, to be able to do that. Can get out dodge as well, and still fire, which is kind of pretty handy. Overall, I've found that Ironstrider to be a great unit. I've never used the autocannon variant yet. I've never been that good with using all cannons, but you know, I will look at that in the future to maybe try and use them against different forces. But it all depends on the sort of force that you are going to be facing against, of course, what tool is better for it. So of course, last cannons are going to be better suited for heavy vehicle armies such as Astra Militarum if they're not conscripts spamming. You know, great way to sort of get, you know, reliable amount of last cannons through, which is ideal. Or as I said with the autocannon, really handy for armies like Elder and Dark Elder, and I think Orcs if they're not using heavy vehicles, to sort of go through their light vehicles as well. Generally I've used the last cannons more than anything. As I said, I don't own autocannons, but last cannons are really handy to help the Dune Crawlers out, basically to either finish off vehicles that pump out a lot of shots and the Dune Crawler's done a bit of damage. Last cannons come in and finish them off, or to in general just you know, be a hazard to other vehicles on the board as well. You know, maybe weaken them down as well, so you have, you know, deteriorating quality vehicles on your opponent's line through your Dune Crawlers, and then your Ballistarii to back them up. So I've personally found the last cannons to be really, really good, but I will give the autocannons a try at some point. You know, one thing I would say about them, and this is what I feel is quite important because they are essentially autocannon and last cannon platforms. You're getting a reliable last cannon and autocannon platform, however you do not have the effects of deterioration. So now deterioration can be if you've got like sort of infantry units such as Devastators, where, you know, each casualty that they suffer you basically lose a model, then you lose a last cannon shot or an autocannon weapon. So as they get deteriorate, so do the amount of shots they do. Well, if you've got like vehicles like Predators, the more wounds they suffer, the more they basically can't hit. You know, I think it lowers their ballistic skill, I'm pretty sure of that. So, you know, Ballistarii don't have that effect. They will put out the same amount of quality firepower in until they're basically reduced to 0 wounds, in which case they're done. But even at 1 wound, they still will reliably put out either 4 cannon shots at Ballistic Skill 3, or they'll put out 2 last cannon shots at Ballistic Skill 3 at 1 wound, which is not bad. I've always found that even it can drive people nuts, and then if you bring your Dominus to repair them, very handy, but it's generally quite good to sort of being able to get down to 1 wound and still put out the damage, because it will just frustrate your opponent and they will ensure that they die, because why wouldn't you? 1 wound left and they're still putting out quality shots? Nah, just finish them off. But it's kind of handy to know you don't get deterioration. So Forge World Dogma recommendations for Ironstrider Ballistarii. I'm going to, it's a bit of an odd one. I say this just about every time. The Mars Forge World rule is recommended because you get Canticles, gives you a higher chance of getting Shroud Slam, which means their survivability goes up, which is great. Benediction of the All Messiah, which obviously allows you to reroll 1s, which is pretty essential with some of the stratagems, I will suggest. But again, if you have a Dominus or Call, it's kind of wasted on them as well. So really, if you are going Mars, it just gives you that extra chance to basically get Shroud Slam. That's it. Mars is handy for that reason, is you do get 2 abilities, but being able to get Shroud Slam's handy. I suppose with their mobility, and if you end up going across the field to get away from the Dominus to maybe take an objective, yeah, then Benediction of the Omicide is handy because you'll be out with their range. So something to bear on that one as well. Something I haven't mentioned before, especially with sort of units that are sitting back, is I think it's Agrippina. Yep, it's probably not bad for these guys either, because if you are playing like a static gunline army and you're facing orcs or tyrannids who love to charge you, then being able to overwatch on a 5+ is really, really handy. So yeah, Agrippina, not bad for your Dune Crawlers, your Ironstrider Ballistaries, and basically destroyers and things. If you are going gunline, consider that if you're going to get an army that is charging you. I wish I'd known that in another game I played where I got charged by a bunch of orcs and I went Mars, but I did bring Call and he was worth every point, as you do if you go Mars. But it's worth noting, if you decide to not bring him, then try Agrippina, just to sort of get better Overwatch shots. So, stratagems. Now, I feel stratagems are where it's at when it comes to Ballistarii and Dragoons, which I'll go into either in a video. This will either be uploaded before or after this. But both these units really benefit from stratagems. So we're going to look at the Ironstrider stratagems and see which ones are probably best. So Cockiness Overwatch is not a bad stratagem to think about here for 1 command point. It'll be very dependent on the opponent that is charging your Ironstrider though, and what your Ironstrider is armed with. If you've been charged with elite units or infantry, autocannons are very helpful, while against combat walkers like dreadnoughts or a soul character looking to tear them apart, you're better off having the lance cannons attached to it. It will shock your opponent, basically the reliable amount of damage, because what Cockiness Overwatch does is basically, instead of needing 6s to Overwatch, you're going to hit full ballistic skill. So let's say, it might be a case they've got some crazy character or dreadnought with an axe or fist coming at you. You go, cool, well for 1 command point, I'm going to Overwatch you with maybe 1 of your last cannons. If you've got 2 Ironstrider, maybe 2, and you're putting out last cannon shots that hit 3+. That dreadnought character is going to be in a bit of trouble. So there's something to keep in mind there. You can do the same with autocannons as well, but generally if you are finding that characters or walkers or single unit models that have lots of wounds that you can rip apart from them, it's worth thinking about Cockiness Overwatch just in that circumstance you do get charged. Against Horde armies, I'd probably say, nah, just accept that your Ironstrider is going to be pulled apart under the weight of dice. So maybe not, you might cause some damage with the autocannons, but generally I'd keep this one in mind if there's a fierce character or walker coming at you. So Cockiness Overwatch is pretty good. Protector Doctrine Imperative is probably one of the best, one of the most useful stratagems for Ironstriders and a lot of Scutari units in general. Now I believe it's 1 command point, but as they cut, and what it does is that adds +1 to their hit rolls in the shooting phase, or +2 if they have a data tether of some sort. Now, Ironstrider Ballistarii do have broad spectrum data tethers, so you get +2 to hit. Now, there's a lot of ways this is actually very, very helpful. This means that if you even move with them, you're hitting on a 2+, so you move your full 10 inches, you get +2 to hit. Usually you'd be hitting on 4s, but no, you're hitting on 2s, so that's really ideal, allowing you to really get a strong bit of movement. And even if you decide to advance, you know, usually you're going to be hitting on 5s, but with +2 you're hitting back onto your normal ballistic skill. So really important to think about that. It is using the mobility of Ballistarii quite a lot. I think that's very, very essential to remember, especially if you're playing objective games. The Ballistarii can work as good objective seizing units along with still retaining their firepower. So I really like Protector Doctrine Imperative. I mean, even if you decide not to move them, you're still hitting on 2+, and if you've got Benediction of the Messiah or, you know, Dominus nearby, it just means that you're going to have some really, really solid last cannon shots or auto cannon shots. So that's a really important one to remember for one command point, to get such a high amount of pluses to hit. Really handy. Next up we have a very similar one in some respects, is Rage of the Machines is a good stratagem for Ironstriders, especially if you know, if you advance, as it ignores the penalties to Cognus, Heavy, etc, etc. In general, I think it's, you know, I'm going to have to check that one, because if you advance with Rage of the Machine Spirit, I'm not 100% sure if it's going to help. So yeah, if you're into the end, so yeah, basically you would, you know, all penalties for moving and firing heavy weapons, advance and firing assault, and for advancing and firing combat. Yeah, Cognus. So yeah, you can still move and advance, and you mitigate the penalties from that. So you can still fire heavy weapons and hit on 3+, whether you, you know, moved and advanced. You know, it's kind of handy, or even if you just moved, you don't suffer the effects for heavy. So that's really handy on that side as well. One thing I would say on that point is that Rage of the Machine Spirit. So Rage of the Machines is good because you will be hitting your normal ballistic skill. Now you will find that maybe some other units might be more worth it to take Protector Doctrine, so say you want to take that on Dune Crawlers, and that Dune Crawler will be hitting on a 2+, and then you can take Rage of the Machines so that your Ironstriders can move and be hitting on 2+, well, hitting on 3+. So it's really handy on that side as well. In fact, you could probably just move and advance them, cover huge range, and hit on 3+, and your Dune Crawlers get to 2+. And that's all for 2 command points. So a high, you know, several units getting high amount of bonuses. One thing I'd probably say is that, to go back to Protector Doctrine Imperative, is that if you've taken a unit of Ironstrider Ballistarii, say 3, so they're getting 6 last cannon shots for instance, then I'd probably go with Protector Doctrine Imperative, so that you can actually hit on 2s rather than if you go for Rage of the Machines you'd be hitting on 3s. It's really over, you know, it allows you to basically buff up between Rage of the Machines and Protector Doctrine Imperative. It allows you to choose sort of 2 units in which to buff up, and you can decide which one's going to cause the most damage. Obviously a unit of Ironstrider Ballistarii, if they're going to be hitting on 2s, then go with Protector Doctrine. If you want to give that to something else, you have the Rage of the Machines option as well if they are moving. So yeah, that's it for Ballistarii. I really do like the unit. It's a good fast attack unit that does put out a weapons platform for additional shots. However, you know, you do find that other units do what they do better. But being able to do it into the fast attack is essential. Some great mobility on them to take objectives, and some great stratagems to make them more reliable to hit. How have you found Ironstriders? Are they worth it as a, you know, a mobile weapon platform? Do you find that other units are possibly better taking? Don't say Selling Robots or Dune Crawlers, I have covered that they are generally better. These are more backups, but do you think that you need those backups? Let me know. So thanks again guys for checking us out. Please check us out on social media to see our sort of current projects we're working on, and all sort of the Warhammer community updates as well, as we post all them and the projects we're doing. So thanks again, please share, comment, like and subscribe, and we'll see you on another Tabletop Assault Battle Report.